Hello, I'm Marianne Domain. You're watching CBC News Network. Israel's Prime Minister is dismissing reports the U.S. has convinced him to scale back military operations in Gaza. He's been updating his cabinet on a call he had yesterday with U.S. President Joe Biden.
עד הסוף, עד לניצחון, עד שנשלים את כל יעדינו.
Benjamin Netanyahu warns the conflict could drag on for some time. On the battlefield, Israeli troops are pushing deeper into southern Gaza. Military leaders say 200 Hamas targets have been hit in the last 24 hours. But the IDF is also suffering losses. Iris Mackler has more on that and the call between Netanyahu and Biden.
It was a long conversation between Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. And by the way, that's not unusual. We understand that the two speak regularly, maybe not for this length of time. When Joe Biden was asked about it afterwards, what he said was that he did not demand a ceasefire, but that he did discuss, first of all, the hostages, and second of all, the objectives and phasing of the war. We've been reporting here on News Network that there's been a difference, if you like, between Israeli politicians and the Israeli military on this phasing of the war. And what the military is indicating is that this effort is going to take a year to really clear out all that underground city that Hamas has built under the Gaza Strip. And so they think this phase is likely to end in January. Perhaps that was part of the discussion that was actually, that we don't know the details of between the two leaders. The other thing that we can say since then is that as soon as the ceasefire talks for a hostage deal ended on Thursday, Israel says it has expanded its military operation. So I guess that's between now and January, if you look at those timings, maybe even the end of January. And we are seeing a greater Israeli military effort in the south and the center of the Gaza Strip, somewhere they hadn't gone before. We are seeing more civilian casualties on the Palestinian side, more militant casualties and more militant surrenders from Hamas, and a greater number of Israeli soldiers who are dying in this battle. So over this weekend, there have been 14 casualties. That brings the total who died since the ground offensive began to around 150. That's significant in Israeli terms, though if you listen to the politicians this morning, the ground offensive is going ahead at this expanded rate. One other thing I will say about the hostages, and that's that we have heard from Palestinian sources that the discussion that was stalled in Cairo can still go on in Cairo, that there's a new deal possibly on the table, and that would involve a 2-week truce in return for some 40 Israeli hostages currently held in the Gaza Strip, and release of 120 Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Let's see if that works.
That's journalist Iris Mackler in Jerusalem.